Imagine getting a phone call from the police claiming that you had a jury summons that you missed, there was a warrant for your arrest, you were being tracked by the government, and they were going to find you, arrest you, convict you, and ruin your life unless you paid a fee in Bitcoin. In this episode of Truth Be Told, we're going to take you inside a financial scam unlike anything that you've heard before. Tens of millions of dollars stolen through a scheme that stretched nationwide. It's a case tangled with corruption, jailhouse interviews, drones, and cryptocurrency. Joining me are the two detectives who led the investigation, and together, we're going to explore how sharp communication and strategic interviewing uncovered the truth and brought the scheme to light.
This is the Truth Be Told podcast, where we unlock the secrets of strategic communication.
Joining me today are two detectives from Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, Andrew Rowe and Carlos Verdoni. Detective Rowe is a second-generation law enforcement officer and is an almost 22-year veteran spending the last 6 years in the agency's criminal investigation section. He's currently assigned to the Economic Crimes Unit and is a member of the agency's hostage negotiation team. He's also a Tampa Bay Bucks fan, attempts to golf, and a bourbon connoisseur. Detective Verdoni has served with the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office since 2001, dedicating more than 2 decades to combating financial crime and protecting the community. Longtime member and leader within the International Association of Financial Crime Investigators, he's also been instrumental in growing the Florida chapter to over 600 members. With 14 years of experience as a detective in the criminal investigation section, Carlos has earned recognition for his outstanding work in fraud investigations and his commitment to teaching and mentoring others. These two detectives are known not just for their ability to investigate cases, but for their reputation as being good people, great partners, and leveraging the power of relationships in their everyday work. Welcome to this episode of Truth Be Told. I am with two of my good friends, Carlos and Andrew, detectives out of Sarasota County. Thanks for joining me, guys, down south where it's 115 degrees still in Florida.
Thanks for having us,
Good
Dave.
golf
Appreciate
weather.
you doing the invite.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good golf weather. Before we get into anything, just a shout out to the International Association of Financial Crime Investigators, IFCI, because that's really the association and the group that was able to connect us all together. I know Carlos sits on the board, but Carlos, if you just want to share a little bit about, I guess, the association and how important these kind of events have been to help collaborate and build relationships across agencies and industries.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I was trying to think back, like, what was the first year we met at a conference? God, it's been a while for sure. But anyway, the organization itself is an important organization because it brings together investigators from the banking side and also law enforcement, whether local or federal, in trying to just work together and combat fraud. The bad guys always work together, so we figure why not have the good guys work together as well, and just try to keep up. Figure a way to get at them to be able to prevent them from committing fraud and having more victims across the U.S.
Yeah, and what you all know always talk about is the importance of networking and communication, which really ties into the podcast. Obviously, I know Andrew's best form of communication is when there's a bottle of bourbon at the table, is what I've learned. But what's kind of neat about what we're going to talk about today is the both of you, have worked collectively on tons of cases, and we're going to talk specifically about some financial crime cases. And this one, which is crazy, we're gonna probably talk about everything from drones to rental cars to inmate interviews, but really the source of all of this is effective communication. So I don't know if you guys can kind of chat a little bit about, before we get into the specific scam, but what your roles are, because you're not just standard detectives, right? There's some other task forces and things you both get involved in. So Andrew, I'll let you kind of kick it off about like what's kind of your role at the agency, and then Carlos, whatever you want to add on to that.
We should really have Carlos go first, because he's the goat of fraud, as we put it down here. He even has a trophy with that. So Carlos, go ahead, start off.
Not committing fraud, Carlos, investigating it.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. So yeah, they went ahead and bought a little goat trophy, and they put my face on the front of the trophy. And Andy likes to call me the goat of fraud, which is just ridiculous. I mean, let's just be real. I'm just a regular guy. I started back in 2010 was my first investigations tour when I started, And then throughout the years, like within 2 years, I knew I wanted to work fraud cases. And so I started working those kind of cases to the point where we finally created a fraud unit in 2021. Our sheriff, Kurt Hoffman, was phenomenal at seeing the need. And because of that, we created a unit. And then next thing you know, I got to have one of my best friends, one of my good friends, Andy, come be part of the unit. And so we've just been killing it, man. We're having some fun, but soon to end. I'll retire soon, and then I hand over the reins to the next go to fraud, Andy Rowe,
Far from goat, but I am unofficially Carlos's babysitter. He's kind of a handful
personal assistant.
sometimes, as you would know, Dave. And so I've been with the agency for almost 22 years. My father was a deputy of this agency long before I was. Mid 70s, I think he started. He worked for half the sheriffs at the time when he retired. Um, so they let me as a 21-year-old snot-nosed rookie come in. Was going to be a road dog, going to be a patrol my whole life. Carlos and our boss Jason Friday talked me into finally coming up here. Did a couple years general assignment, kind of found a knack for car related crimes. For some reason, they still call me. After that, took over the guy who promoted out of the fraud unit, Brian Bearcaw. He promoted to sergeant. I took over his spot next to Carlos. Thus lies our illustrious career together. Other than that, I am on the hostage negotiation team for the agency. I've been doing that for about 4 or 5 years. And we're actually going to our first competition this week.
A competition for hostage negotiation?
Correct. The NTOA has standards for negotiation teams, kind of like they have for the SWAT teams. And it's relatively new. I think this is the third year they've done it. But you get judged by independent negotiators on how your team functions with a negotiation, dealing with subjects, making it so you can. Is your communication lines clear with them? Are there anything that you're not getting that they're trying to tell you? Is there, if another team were to come in, would they be able to understand what you guys have said and done about everybody you've talked to, type thing? It's an all-day event. It's very long mentally, as you would know, Dave. Talking to somebody for an extended time was more wear out mentally. You feel like you're just exhausted. But yeah, it's the first time our agency's done it. Really looking forward to it, see what happens, and we kind of go up against the cream of the crop for our Tampa Bay area.
That's really cool. Well, good luck. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how much we talk about how communication impacts every aspect of life, but really of your job, everything from hostage negotiation to we're going to talk a little bit today about interviewing victims, informants, suspects. And from what I've learned about this case, maybe even having to talk to other folks in the public safety arena that maybe have allowed for some lapse of security protocols and how we can help address that. I'll let you guys kind of dig into it, but I've got this whole concept labeled as Georgia prison scams, and we're going to get into what that means. But can you guys maybe just high level, what does this look like? What does this start like? What's the concept, I guess, from a victim receiving a phone call? What does that look like in this?
Go
in
ahead,
this specific
Carlos.
case?
You got this, buddy. I have faith in you.
You want to go,
If
Andy?
he's still there. No, I said you go.
All right, I'll tell you, Dave. So basically, with the way this case worked out, but before I start that, by the way, before I start anyway, just so you know, Andy has mentioned many, many times that thanks to your classes, it's made him a better hostage negotiator in learning learning how to talk to people. So I appreciate you helping him out there. But on this,
Well,
on the
that's
flip side, on
good.
this,
But now if there's a failure, I'm going to feel like we own it. So let's hope he sticks with it. But that's good to hear.
no failure, no failure. But on this particular case, our victim is a medical professional that got a call, and and she basically got a call and it was told that she had a warrant for her arrest. Obviously, working nights in the hospital, she kind of got nervous that maybe she did miss that jury duty letter that came in the mail. And they were able to convince her that she had to pay either A, be arrested, physically go to the jail, turn herself in, which is not great for anybody in medical fields because obviously the hospitals are looking for stuff like that because they'll just look for a reason to maybe give you a slap on the wrist. It could even be up to letting you go as well, right? So they get nervous about that stuff. And then on the flip side of it, they told her like, well, you can go down to the local bonding transition center and pay for your fine that way, which winds up being a Bitcoin machine. And so that's how the case started. Um, most of these cases do end up overseas, but this one
Yeah.
didn't go that way. Andy, anything to
So
add?
so a victim's getting just a phone call. Basically, there's a common person not associated with any of this stuff. They haven't done anything wrong. They're getting a call that says, "You've got a warrant out for your arrest, and if you don't pay us or pay this fine, all these bad things are going to potentially happen to you." And now you mentioned she was in healthcare. When I was looking and listening to you guys speak about this before, it seemed like a lot of the victims were either in like the medical field or teachers, or what's the reason for that being kind of the victim, um, I guess, persona that these people
Type
were targeting.
typology is that what you're looking for, Dave? Victim
Right, you
typology.
got it. I was like, see, I knew any of the
Yeah,
bigger words. I'm going to ask Andrew to assist with.
I'm not as dumb as I look. I'm just a pretty face. So, um, so what we cooperating with other agencies across the nation, mainly out of Colorado Springs. I'll give a shout out to her, Miranda Schmidt. She's really good at what she does. We kind of noticed a pattern developing. All of these people either were healthcare professionals or had some sort of professional license of some sort that are available for you, me, and Joe Blow with a computer to be able to go and research them online. And not only can you research them online, but it gives your address, it gives pretty much everything but your social security number and date of birth. They may even give you date of birth in some of them, who knows? But your stuff's out there if you have a professional license for people to obviously see if you're a legitimate doctor, see if you're a legitimate teacher, see if you're a legitimate real estate agent. And so now we have an open source database that anybody can use to basically create a victim pool.
It's terrifying, right? So anybody out there, if the people that are listening, I mean, all of our information's out there anyway, but if you have some type of professional license or registration where people can look, I mean, it could be your local contractor, right? You want to look up and make sure they actually have a license to do HVAC or plumbing or whatever it might be. That means there's something out there to make them an easier target, I guess is what you're saying.
Yes.
And so when you are talking, did either of you or both of you get the chance to actually talk to some of these victims? And if you did, what's that interaction like? Like this balance between embarrassment, fear of consequences? Like, what is the interaction like with a victim?
So our victim in this one, she at first was afraid. Like she tells me, the fear of actually, did I mess up? Which is what they prey on, right? They're listening to somebody tell them like, you missed jury duty, you have to be arrested, right? But then after that, it's embarrassment, right? Because nobody wants to fall for a scam like that. Once you think about it, you walk through the steps, you realize all the flags. As Jonathan Waltons mentioned before, by the way, great podcast on that one. Um, you see all the flags that come up, right? And then and so therefore she did realize I should have came out of it at some point, and she didn't. But that just happens. As a victim, you're under stress. So which is what the goal of the suspect is to become to basically stress you out so that you can go ahead and fall for whatever they want you to do. So most of the victims feel that way. This particular case was the same situation.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of times when people, they hear about any type of finance scam, romance scam, like a lot of people's initial thought is they're going to target only elderly people, or they're going to target people that might have, limited intellectual capacity, or somebody who's super gullible. But in this case, you got some people that are well-educated professionals that were victims. So how do you approach that conversation? You guys have talked to victims of financial crimes and other crimes for your entire career. What's your kind of mindset when you're going to approach a victim? Because I'm sure in your head, you're like, Jesus, how'd you fall for this? But obviously you can't take that into the conversation with them.
You kind of do sometimes, to be quite honest with you. Uh, no, I'll speak for myself on my end. This case made it extremely hard for us to even connect with victims, mainly because I don't know if we covered it, but they were impersonating law enforcement, namely deputies at our agency when they were doing it. So when you report this as a victim, and then I call you we have a generic number that shows up. It's not a specific identifier, but they are actually spoofing our phone number to the sheriff's office when they were calling you. So now it's double-edged sword, right? I have a phone number from the sheriff's office and a guy pretending to be a detective there wanting to talk to me again. are they going to answer the phone, number one? And Carlos and I can attest to how many times we get yelled at on the phone. I've been cursed at so many times, having to basically, Carlos came up with a system for us to get to these people like, hey, we're not going to tell you the number. Just go ahead and call the non-emergency, get a hold of, ask for one of us, and you'll go from there. So that's how it pretty much went on that end as far as talking to them. But after you get past that point, it's a point of, listen, it happened. Let's get over it. Let's go for it and see what happens.
What is, I guess, as much information as you can share? How do you kind of triage these things? Because there's financial scams all the time, right? You can have somebody calling because they got screwed out of a deal on Facebook Marketplace, or you could have something where we're into millions of dollars of fraud. So how do you, and maybe not even your agency, but kind of across the country, how do they triage and determine like what's a priority, what gets assigned to you, and what are you actually going to spend time on?
So we're a little bit different, Dave, because we have a very proactive and very supportive sheriff. So I think I've got him all the way down to he'll actually send me overseas to go arrest somebody next time I arrest somebody. So if that's the case, kudos to him. But
That's
he's
why you've
very
been
proactive.
investigating cases in Italy and Greece.
Oh,
I understand now. Yeah.
listen, let's not talk about the places I travel, okay? But
Right. Right.
I think he probably meant like the county next door. But long
Right.
story short, he's been very proactive at saying, "Hey, go get them. Let's get them arrested because obviously they're affecting the citizens of our county." And what we have found during this entire thing is that while everybody may have the same mentality or try to, a lot of them don't have the means or even the understanding, the capability of investigating a case like this. Um, so in this particular case, Jason, our boss, uh, a good friend of mine, and we've been working fraud forever. Um, he understands the gravity of it, and he's like, you know what, we're gonna have to put some time into this and see what it comes out of it. Remember, at that point, I only had one victim, but then as we start to look further, we found like 27 other victims in the county, and therefore we knew we had a bigger case. So we had to focus on it, and then it continued to grow and grow and grow. It's clearly it's a case that crosses the entire nation. So at this point, we're just working as best as we can because there's so much information to work with. Andy,
Right.
anything to add?
I mean, we started out small, right? Like Carlos said, most of these end up overseas, and up until that point, uh, we had never had an arrest for cryptocurrency, right? It's basically until the invention of the tracing tools that made it easy for it. Open source is fun and all, but we didn't know really what to do. Uh, we tell them, "Oh, you did crypto. Sorry about your luck. It's in the etherverse.
Right.
On to the next one, right?" So yeah, I mean that's pretty much where our thought process was on it. And then once we started really delving into it, and we'll get into it later probably, but I wanted to almost punch Carlos with his email that he sent out, or my phone didn't stop ringing for 4 days from victims in other parts of the country.
Well, let's get into that. So I'd like to transition into all right, what happens next. So I've got these kind of quotes where just again, people that are listening, whether you're an investigator or a layperson that this could happen to, you're getting this phone call and an example you guys have here. Turn yourself in, or we're going to dispatch the U.S. Marshals to your location based on your GPS. We're tracking your location. So your options are, you can go to jail where you're going to be strip searched, photographed, fingerprinted. Plus, they have all these other consequences if they have a license. Or take your money to a bonding transaction center. So what is a bonding transaction center? And then where does your investigation go from there? How do you go from victim to now investigation?
Go ahead, Carlos.
Go ahead,
This
Andy.
is where you get fun.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, this is your fun part. This is where you
All
you
right.
created the task force, buddy.
So basically, the bonding transaction center, it's a Bitcoin machine. And they have to, I guess, make it sound better by calling it something
Right.
that's similar, right? But what's frustrating about it is that let's just pause for a second, going back to communication, right? One of the key things of communication is the listening part, right? And so you feel bad for the victim because they're caused to have stress. But if they just would take an extra second to listen what they're saying, they would realize it doesn't make any sense. Number one, cops will never call you to tell you they have a warrant. Just just flat out, we're not going to call you. We're just going to show up at the door, kick it in, and take you. That's what we do.
Right.
Safety reasons is really the reason more than anything else. So those things come up, and next thing you know, we're investigating this case, right? Um, the bonding transition center was basically an ATM. They went in, they submitted this money into it, and Next thing you know, to trace the funds where they went, you have to have certain things that come out on that receipt. But in this particular case, the company that they used does not have a wallet on the receipt to be able to trace. So we have to send them subpoenas to say, hey, where did this money go? And that just takes forever. I mean, I don't know. I don't know any cop that likes a subpoena because I just don't. They take way too long. The problem with cryptocurrency is it moves so fast that the subpoena, even if it's 3 days later, it's too late and the money's moving. So in this particular case, I went to a company and I started to send them a whole bunch of subpoenas to the point that we got some phone calls from them going like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "What do you mean I'm doing? What am I doing? I'm trying to arrest some people. I need some information." And so we kind of created an ad hoc team with that company and another investigator, Lauren O'Brien over at Coinbase. Um, Shout out to her. She came on board, and once we had some connections to Coinbase, she's like, "What can I do to help?" And here we are. We started a small group that literally started meeting every weekly, and we started to see the amount of fraud occurring throughout across the nation. Anything else to add to
So
that, Andy?
no, you started this fiasco. I just picked up on the back end of it.
Well, let's talk about subpoenas because I know that gives some people trauma. So you're saying
Oh
what you're
yeah.
saying is for people that have never had to deal with this before, you can't just um, like a Law and Order episode. You can't go issue a subpoena and then in 60 minutes you're going to get the results you want and go close the case. What's the ballpark of how many subpoenas you think you had to file in a case like this?
Wow.
I think we were close to 200 at the end result, and it's still not done because it's still an ongoing scam. But for the course of 2024, when this was hot and heavy, I think we issued something about 180 subpoenas.
Crazy. And so people like that again aren't familiar with that process. It's not as easy as just putting the subpoena out there and hoping that you're going to get information that you think you're going to get. Can these go back and forth multiple times? Do you deal with privacy issues? Like what's the typical obstacle of trying to get information when you're trying to investigate and protect the community? What's the obstacle that you often deal with?
Well,
Well,
for
the
example,
communication, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, and I know when I bring this up, this is a topic for Carlos. He's going to get on a soapbox about the subpoena
Yeah,
process, but
I hope you are prepared for
I'll,
this. But
I'll
go ahead,
censor him if I
Carlos.
have to, but go for it. I'm just curious. Again, I think people listening don't know what this process actually looks like and the difficulty in getting intel.
okay, I'll tell you how frustrating it is to deal with subpoenas, okay? You have one city and one county that can probably get a subpoena back within hours. And then you have another city and another county and another state that you have to basically request a subpoena, and it could be weeks. So there is no consistency amongst law enforcement to be able to get a piece of paper to let them know, hey, I'm doing an investigation. I need this information right away because I'm trying to stop this money from leaving, right? And it's not happening. So it is just so frustrating because there should be a better way. There's got to be an easier way to say, hey, whoever you're looking at or whatever company you're going to look for information, here's a signed subpoena from a state attorney. Here you go. In some states, they actually require that they do search warrants, not even subpoenas. I'm like, that's to me is just absolutely crazy, drives me nuts. But unfortunately, that's what they require us to do. We're just lucky. Sarasota, again, our state attorney's office gets the stuff done usually within the day. I mean, it's merely hours, and then we're running. But then again, it takes weeks for us to get stuff back. Depending on what bank you send it to, it could be months. Others come back quicker, and there's no set process that you can rely on, basically. And this is why the bad guys know this. This is why they take advantage of us, because we can't get somebody to put them all together on the same place. Go ahead, Andy. I know you want to say something.
So I'm gonna be my NASCAR driver now, and throw another shout out to AJ at Codex, who has made the subpoena process a lot easier in this. Uh, they weren't around really when this started. I don't think, maybe halfway through it, but
Starting.
they streamlined the process for us at the very least to where Carlos is no joke. It takes about at least 30 to 90 days to get a response back once we send a subpoena in for most of these places. Some companies have taken the step forward and gone through Codex where literally I'll send a subpoena out and within 45 minutes to an hour, I'll have the response back through the Codex portal.
So if we go to this concept of you're issuing subpoenas, you're hopefully getting some information. Now you're starting to track cryptocurrency, and you're tracking where maybe either other victims are or where suspects are. And is this where the case starts to grow? Like, how does it take off from there?
Well, we went to Georgia. That's how it kind of took off, right? I mean, Andy and I literally had all these cases popping up in Sarasota. I'm not kidding. It was about 23 to 27 of them, and we knew that our particular victim's money went to a lady in Georgia. So it's always a good time to say, "Hey, Andy, we got to go on our trip to Georgia. You're driving." And he's like, "Yeah, let's go. I got the keys." So he loves to drive, as his NASCAR race himself that he says. And we went up to Georgia, and lucky for us, we found her. We actually had a county, Bibb County, that did a phenomenal job in helping us out. I won't talk about the other county because they drove me nuts, but the Bibb County for sure helped us out. We had her located within 2 to 3 hours, and we brought her in for an interview. Andy, why don't you tell us about that interview?
Tell me about the
Case,
interview. I'm going to let you have the floor because this information yields a lot of results that opens up this case, right? This helps kind of pivot it. So walk me through what you got.
well, I really don't know a whole lot about the interview. She did not like me, basically because I called her a liar. You know, the old good cop, bad cop. If anybody knows Carlos and he interviews you in a criminal manner, I'm sorry, number one. Number two, he's going to tell you what a nice guy he is. Uh, and
I
she
am.
must have played into that immediately because she loved Carlos. Uh, she was kind of feeding us a line of crap at the beginning. Um, and then I was getting texts from the people outside saying, "Hey, you might want to check into this, check into that." So basically, I got tired of getting it out of the room because I was gone for a lot of it, trying to get information to feed Carlos on the as we're going through it. Um, but then I basically just called her a liar because she was completely lying about the person that she was doing this for initially, and that's where she pretty much clammed up at me. And I made the executive decision to get out of the room so Carlos could continue his interview with her.
So
Tell
Dave,
us.
right there, that tells you that I've been a couple more to your classes than Andy has. Which, by the
Right.
way, we're planning on sending him to some more. But
Right.
um, I didn't care that she was lying. I was just letting her talk to get comfortable, right? Because that, to me, as an investigator, I already know what I know, and I have facts in hand before I ask your question. So I'm just trying to get to those facts. And if you want to tell me a stop story or a line for 5 to 10 minutes and eventually get to the point where I need to be, I'm okay with that. Some of us have a little more patience than others. Mr. NASCAR guy there, not so much.
She was encroaching on poker night, sir.
Right. Right. So, so how does that interview? I know eventually there's a rental vehicle, right? And this is what opens up the case further and from a GPS standpoint. What's that transition of information of rental vehicle and what kind of investigative mindset do you have there that helps expand the case?
Well, I'll
So the
go into
interview with
that one.
Marlita was one thing.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll let you
your
talk
name
about
and
Spirit in a
names.
second.
Your name and names.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
that's fine.
okay.
Marlita's interview was a little bit different because she immediately admitted to what she was doing, um, and to include her boyfriend who was in prison. And basically because of that, I took her phone, I seized it legally, and then I was able to get into the phone and figure out that this was a bigger deal, right? When we start seeing drones and all kinds of things happening with the prison system in Georgia, having phones delivered. Um, Andy, you want to talk about the other case? What it's literally kind of split off at the same time.
Yeah. So as we're making the plans to go up to Georgia, we were reached out to by our sister agency here at Sarasota Police Department, and they had a very similar case, but the person actually showed up in person to pick up the money. So the investigator there did a great job, was able to pinpoint a vehicle that that person was in, was able to get a tag. Comes back to a rental car agency. It's not Enterprise or one of the big ones. It's mom and pop. Uh, I think Carlos can attest. Probably the not the nice, not the cleanest car rental place we've ever been to, but super nice employee, and they care about their cars because they have GPS trackers on every one of them. Well, it just so happens as we're in the war room talking to the Macon Bibb County people, we're talking about this case, and one of their analysts goes, "Hey, we just had a case similar to that. Uh, can I show you a picture?" I said, "Sure, show me a picture." So he shows me a picture, and lo and behold, the same person from Sarasota wearing the same outfit is the one on video picking up the money from another victim in Georgia. I say, "Hey, well, this is the tag number she was in or the vehicle she was in." He runs that, boom, it's in their county, it's in their city at the time frame that this crime is happening. So, wham, I go, "Well, cool. We know there's a tracker on her car and we know where she's at if you want to go get her," but it was like an hour and a half away. So they're out of jurisdiction type thing, understood. But so yeah, it leads us to a rental car agency in I guess we call that Central Georgia, Carlos, Middle Georgia.
Yeah, Middle Georgia.
So far, you've already mentioned maybe 3 or 4 different agencies, a couple different companies. You guys are working with a lot of people that are not either directly under your control, your org chart. And so what's that like? Like any things that you have learned either from successes or failures on how to have effective persuasion or communication with people that don't necessarily have to comply with you?
Before Andy speaks, because I can tell you right now, that man can walk in any room and make a friend with just about anyone. How he gets away with it, I do not know. But anyway, nobody dislikes Andy. Everybody loves this guy. I mean, look at that face, right? But before we get into that part of it, I think going back to what you mentioned earlier, Dave, as long as you've known me, one of my biggest things is collaboration. Meeting people, talking, learning about different things. So I've never been shy to be able to call somebody and say, hey, here's who I am, and I need some help. I mean, I don't know the answers to everything, but you are obviously an expert in this field, or at least can guide me. And I tend to get people to help me out and start working together. In this case was no different. I mean, the moment I started seeing certain things, obviously I'm already working with Andy. Andy and I, this is like we were in hand from day one, like literally stuck at the hip, which he loved it, by the way, hanging out with me all day and night. But we eventually just started making contact with people and just in having them join in. You gotta be able to talk to people. You can't be afraid to ask for help. And some of the things that I see in the newer detectives is that I don't know if it's fear, because I don't think it's fear. It's just the unknown of how do I reach out to somebody and make that connection. It's all about friendships. I've always said that. It's one thing to go out and network and meet somebody, but you want to build a relationship from that, and that's what I've kind of stuck on. Andy, I know you got more to say, so go ahead.
Well, it's not just reaching out to people because a lot of times they won't even pick up the phone. So sometimes you just got to knock on the door and not be afraid to throw out what you got. I know, Carlos, you're really holding yourself back here. We're talking about some other place
Except in certain
Carlos
counties.
doesn't like. Yeah. Um, but yeah, you just got to knock on the door. And I'm a big believer, a firm believer, of just telling you why I'm there. What I need, like Carlos said, I have no problem telling you I don't know. So I'm a savant of a lot of things, but I am not a savant of everything, right? So I have no problem going to your house, in a lack of a better term, and saying, "Hey, I need help. What can you do for me?" And that's where this case kind of parlayed us into going there as well. A lot of physical context that necessarily is not easy for a 7-8 hour drive for us to make. But again, our agency said, "Go make it, make the case." When a simple phone call would have done for a little assistance other places, but it is what it is. And we were able to get what we needed just by continuing to have that open line of communication with not only the original place that this all happened at, but everybody along the way has been involved pretty much since day one of, yeah, hey, this is what we got. We got anything else that we should look at? I mean, this thing moved in so many different directions. We joked about it's going to be a Lifetime movie one day, and it's the amount of crap that happened with it is just absolutely amazing. That's still going on, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I like that because like in both of your roles, and anybody wearing a badge, right? It's easy to feel like let me walk in with authority and say, hey, I need this information. I need this. I need that. But when you do that, whether it's with a citizen, another agency, or a private organization, like good luck, right? And it's the same thing with an investigation or an interview, right? It's how do I get cooperation versus compliance?
95% of it is trying to get cooperation. There's a time or two when you might have to say, hey, here's the legal document saying you have to do this. But for the most part, you have to figure out a way to have buy-in and into helping you solve a problem.
Yeah.
And that's really what it takes.
Well, and what's cool as we continue down this path of this case is how many people or how much information you got from little bits and pieces of whether it was informant interviews, jailhouse interviews. He's probably an analyst who happens to think, hey, wait a second, this case is similar. Like those little details is really what helps put this puzzle together, which is pretty cool. And so that's what I'm curious about. I'm thinking you got this rental vehicle, it's got the GPS tracker, which expands this case. Now you know Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Carolinas. You know Florida's already being hit. What brings this investigation into Georgia prison?
Andy, why don't you talk about the convict trail that we did?
No, you need to tell what Marlita's boyfriend was at. That way we can tie it into the
Oh, yeah,
prison system.
I forgot to add that to it. So yeah, so when Marlia said that her boyfriend's the one directing her to do all this, we're like, okay, great, where's he at? I gotta go talk to him. And next thing you know, it's like, well, he's in prison. And I'm like, what do you mean he's in prison? So I'm excited because obviously there should be some way for me to get some information from that. And I come to find out that no, he's got a cell phone in prison, and that's how we communicate. And that's why part of the reason why I took his cell phone legally, and they took her cell phone, brought it down, and looked at it, and sure enough, he's got pictures of himself in the prison system, talking to her, telling her where to send the money, how to receive the money, all the Bitcoin stuff. So right there, right after that, we knew we had to go back to Georgia to talk to this guy in prison. But the cases started popping up more and more. And sure enough, each one of them started leading back to prisons as well. So we knew we had a bigger problem with the prison system. And that's kind of when we decided that we were going to have to do a convict trail. I don't know, Andy came up with the name, which is much better than mine.
I want Andy to expand on that, but just so people get it. I mean, you find out, hey, he's making phone calls from prison. So like you said, you're excited, right? Because now you think, well, I'm going to have call logs. I'm going to have maybe recordings. We're going to have all this information. And then you realize, well, wait a second. They got a nice cell phone plan going on inside Georgia prison. So,
and just so your viewers are clear, prisoners aren't supposed to have cell phones in prison.
Right. This is a no-go. I guess depends what state you're in, allegedly now. But so Andrew, Andy, tell us about the, what'd you call it? The convict
trail.
All right.
Yes. So we come to find out that this prison has what they call a phone problem. I didn't understand if that was a problem with the phones on the wall, or the problem ended up being that they were getting cell phones delivered via drone into the prison for everybody to use. So yeah, through Marlita's first phone, Carlos finds a litany of other names associated with this. We had to buy a whiteboard to try to keep it all together. A flowchart is about 15 pages by now of linking everybody together. And so we're like, hey, it would be really easier if we could just go talk to these people, because we're not getting a whole lot of cooperation from another state. Another state, they have their own problems. We'll leave it at that. So our agency again says, you know what? Go ahead. So Carlos, Jason, and I load up in a car for a week, start up in Nashville, Tennessee, interviewing somebody, which is to another prison we had no idea we were going to. At this point, we had 5 or 6 prisons we were going to end up visiting. So I love bourbon, so I called it the Convict Trail instead of the Bourbon Trail. As we started North Georgia, worked our way all the way down to about 50 miles north of the Florida border, just stopping by, interviewing inmates about what we had with their names and everything about it. Everything was pretty much going status quo as we thought. We weren't getting a whole lot of cooperation. I mean, they tell us a little bit here or there, enough to know they want to know what we knew, is basically what it was boiling down to. And then obviously with an ongoing investigation, you're not going to play your full hand at that point until we get to our last guy, Mr. Tattoos everywhere. He's on the back end of his sentence, and he looks right at us and he goes, you know what? I'm over this game. I'll tell you what you want to know. And there comes the floodgates of, if you want to make money in the Georgia prison systems, you go to these known prisons. They're known as scam camps. It ain't nothing to make X number of dollars per month doing it. This is who's in charge of it. This is what happens, blah, blah, blah. And I got to the point where all 3 of us are in that room, just our jaws are dropped listening to this going, I can't believe this is actually happening in the United States, right? This is just nuts. So we leave that fairly reinvigorated, like, screw this, we got to do something. And that's kind of where it parlayed into the next round of this.
Yeah. So there's a lot of crazy stuff that you just said, that just to make sure people picked up on it. First of all, I heard you say they were getting cell phones via drone into prison. How is this possible? This should not be possible in the United States of America.
They jailbreak the drones.
So we
So
got
yeah,
drones flying over. These are no-fly zones. Typically, I'm assuming you're not allowed to just hover over a prison and hang out for a little while.
Correct.
And so they're dropping in care packages into the prison.
yep, for lack of a better term, care packages. Yes.
Okay.
So yes, they have ability. Obviously, drones are GPS, right? You can't fly near airports, sensitive targets, blah blah blah. And this was obviously there was a operation in Georgia. They did a good job on this. They found a guy who was jailbreaking drones, but of course, if one person's doing it, there's probably 50 doing it. So they were able to jailbreak the drones, fly them from numerous miles away, drop off care packages. We're talking tobacco, marijuana, guns, cell phones, whatever they wanted, they were getting into the prison at that point. So that's turnabout number one of us going, well, what do you got? Well, how can we combat this? So it's luckily
Right.
they had started to try to combat it. It's just again, these people have nothing but time on their hands, so they're constantly figuring out what they can do to combat what we're doing. And they have we have rules, they don't.
Right. Well, and you don't have to give these numbers if you don't want to or can't, but as you hear the story and people are just listening to this, you think, okay, well then just seize the phones. Like, what's the big deal? Seize the phones and the problem's over. But I mean, how big of a how scaled of a problem was this?
Andy?
You want me to throw the number out, Carlos? Is that what I'm the numbers
Sure.
guy. Yeah, I have a great memory compared to Carlos. At the
I'm old.
time, we were told that they were averaging approximately 250 phones being recovered a week throughout the entire state of Georgia per on all the
Insanity.
prisons. So
Yeah.
take that for what it is.
Insanity. Okay. So now now this case blows wide open, right? Because you're getting some intel from the last guy that you spoke of. You know that there's phones being dropped in all over the place. So the scam is a lot bigger than your one victim in Sarasota County. So how does this what's the next step when you start to realize, this is pretty widespread? What do you do? What do you do with that information?
Yeah, Carlos, what do you
Well,
do with that information, Carlos?
before we walk into that conversation, the first question you should be asking yourself, isn't there anything that can be done to prevent drones from being flying over the prison besides obviously being jailbroken? You're right. There are actual systems that they can purchase to prevent drones from coming in. But what the inmate told us basically is they'll send two drones at a time because one's a decoy while the other one does the drop. And then you say to yourself, well, wait a second, doesn't the guard see the second drone like dropping stuff? And his response is basically, yeah, they see it, but they turn around, nothing to do with it, so they walk away, so they get the drop.
Terrible.
So there's all these fails in the system that is allowing for this to continue.
Well, and
So
the other question I got to ask you, Carlos, because you just reminded me of this too, is, when you guys first told this story, I'm thinking, okay, well, fine. For the phones are there. Why can't we jam the phones? Why can't we disable like cell service in the prison? Why can't we just stop the outgoing calls?
go ahead, Andy. This
That's
is
a
better
great
from you.
question, Dave. That is a phenomenal question. And we had the same question as well. I know you're shocked by that.
Of course.
But we were told that there's something that every phone has to have the ability to do, which is what?
Got to call you.
Well, not me
Yeah, call that one.
particularly, but it has to have the ability to call 911.
Exactly. Right.
So even if there is a cell phone jammer position there and you were to call 911, you could still open up that phone to make a 911 call. And that's what they figured out, that if they used the phone to call 911, it would open up the phone. But what we didn't know, what we came to find out, is if you put that call on hold, it still opens up that phone to the tower to make any phone call you want afterwards. So the state of Georgia did invest quite a sum of money in putting cell phone jammers outside some of the target prisons, but these people found a way around.
So these are sophisticated criminals we're talking about.
Oh yeah. Nothing but time, Dave. Nothing but time. They just sitting in a cell and coming up with ideas.
All right, so now we've got this information. I cut you off, Carlos, because you were rolling with what do you do next? Now you got this intel, drones are in, phones are, you're recovering this information where this is a widespread case. What happens
So
next?
basically, the company that I bombarded with the subpoena has reached out and said, "Hey, what can we do to help you out?" And I'm like, well, "What do you mean? What can you do? I need the information." And they're like, "Well, you don't understand. Like, this has been going on for a long, long time." And I'm like, "Well, how long are you talking about?" and it's like years. This has been going on for years. And if you think back, Dave, back in the day, some of the cases that would come in, especially with the warrant duty, they would have people go buy gift cards and stuff at the store, and
Right.
have them sent off, or the green dot pack, whatever. Well, obviously that now has moved into cryptocurrency, right? So when they told me it's been years, we said, okay, well, we can't go back years. So let's just go back to September 2023, which was about a couple months before our first victim. Um, and we started working the case from September 2023 until present, because we're still obviously still working this case. And we come to find out, well, thanks, you're welcome, Andy, by the way. Thanks to this information, Andy had to create a spreadsheet of how many names?
It's roughly 6,000 now.
Of potential victims, suspects, stolen identities, people that are involved on the outside that are moving the money around. I mean, it's just the list is massive, and actually it's a lot bigger, but that's where we're at right now.
We stopped.
So yeah, it's too much. So then we decided, okay, well, what are we gonna do next? So we started going through all the stuff. I did send out an email on Operation Shamrock, and I'll give a shout out to Erin West and Operation Shamrock, because um, she's been very proactive in attacking cryptocurrency. Um, I she's focusing more on the transnational organizations. I'm more of a pissed off about the fact that we have people in the U.S. soil doing it to us. So I'm kind of sticking to that first. I want to solve our problem before I go somebody else's problem. But needs to be said. Thanks to her, I kind of joined up with her group, and we started to share cases. And next thing you know, I put out an email, and Andy literally got bombarded for days in a row with just phone calls and emails, and obviously I gave them his email because he remembers everything and I don't, and I figured that'd be the best way to do record keeping. And so therefore, we actually spoken to over hundreds of agencies across the country. And what you find out when you're discussing these cases with them is that a majority have no clue about cryptocurrency. I mean, I'm saying, like, when I say majority, I'm talking like 90%, 95% don't deal in crypto at all. Like, if a case comes in their way, they don't know what to do with it, or they'll have to ask for help from somebody else because they just can't do it. Um, and so therefore there's a huge need there, something that needs to be thought about as we progress in this conversation. But yeah, so Andy had to do all that, and then we also got about 14,000 wallets of cryptocurrency wallets that was the money that was sent to. Shout out to our friends at TRM Labs, Kyle Armstrong, and others, that basically we said, hey, Kyle, we need help because I can't physically trace 14,000 wallets, and what do I do here? And they were able to assist us by providing some people to help out and actually flag these wallets on their system. So if anybody were to look up that wallet, they can say, hey, this is related to the Sarasota case, or the U.S. prison system gang case, the Georgia prison gang system. So basically, all these people came together, we start working together, and we start working the case. There's just so much data.
Yeah. Well, what's kind of cool to me is not only do you have all these partners and this tangible information in the investigation, but how much of it also came from all the interviews and conversations that you had. So just going to back up for a second. When you guys, I know you said it was difficult with some cooperation, but when you're interviewing inmates and just trying to gain intelligence, just for people who've never been in that situation, how do you approach those conversations a little bit differently? Like, what are you thinking about when you're interviewing somebody who's already incarcerated for something else?
Yeah. So number one, they know liars, right? I mean, you can't go in trying to BS them because they're the king of BSers in order to survive in that environment. So basically, I always approach it of, I lay everything out. I go, your name's involved in this. I don't know how. How do you want to handle it? Do you want to help yourself? Do you want to not help yourself? A lot of these people we talked to were already in there for life, so a lot of them didn't care. They didn't want to talk. But you have to go in there with a mind of, if they talk, they talk. If they don't, they don't. But you only believe about half what they're telling you at that aspect, because again, they really have nothing to lose or gain by talking to you. So going into that, you just kind of, something is better than nothing in all conversation. We can all agree to that one. So you're just hoping for something that will parlay you into your next point of the investigation, that you can use. And we were lucky and fortunate enough that some of the stuff did happen for that.
Yeah, there were out of the probably 7 people we spoke with, there was 2 or 3 that gave us something to work with. Actually, there might have been 4 because I'll include the female that we spoke with first. It was minute information, but as we all know in an investigation, it's about every stone you get to unturned, right? You may only get 1 or 2 stones in this one conversation, but as you go along, you might flip over another 5 or 10, and it starts to make a big picture, right? The way I approach it is similar to Andy, where I don't go into a room until I'm ready to go into a room and to talk to people. And I come in with facts. Do I sometimes fish? Sure, but for the most part, it's just the facts. And I think where I've been successful is I don't care if you murdered somebody. Well, I do care. I do care that you murdered somebody, and I'm gonna put you away. But I'm gonna treat you
Make
like a
sure you
human
keep that,
because when
Dave.
I do that, it define. Hold on, well, hear me out though. I do care, and I'm gonna put you away for life, without a doubt. But but when you talk to them at the human level, no matter what atrocity they've done, it it diffuses them. Instead of coming in and going like you did this, this, and this, and this, if you change it to where like let's talk about this, you've already messed it up. We got to figure out why and how to get around it. And that diffuses the situation. They can't think I'm a jerk because I'm trying to find out why they did what they did. That's how I approach it.
Yeah. Well, and what both of you kind of just covered in two different ways was the importance of information, right? So obviously getting everybody wants what they see at the end of, CSI and Law and Order and 48 hours if somebody says, yeah, I did it, right? Confession. But sometimes just getting a little bit of gold, right? A little bit of intel that advances the investigation can be just as powerful. And that's going through this case. It's so cool when you start to look at, in hindsight, all the little droplets of information, everything from a GPS tracker to the interviews to eventually being able to look in cell phones. I mean, what you don't have to go into detail, but what other information, other crimes may have you uncovered in this outside of just financial scam? Like, what else could be going on in these cases?
All kinds of fraud. Like anything you can think of on the outside is happening inside the prison system. Anything. There's no crime that cannot happen in the prison system, especially when they have a phone in hand. It's a walking computer. Um, and I kind of wish, since we're throwing TV shows out there like Hawaii Five O, I kind of wish we had that little table in the middle where you can just throw stuff on the wall and it shows you what you need to see. It doesn't work that way. But yeah, it's one of those things like it's tough because you're looking for more information, and with the digital age that we live in now, sometimes you get way too much information, and then you got to process all that information, and then it's not easy either way. It's not easy. You want more, but at the same time, can you take more?
And as
Right.
far as other crimes that you're talking about, Dave, we did witness a stabbing that occurred inside the prison. Uh, Obvious public corruption going on with jail officials actually aiding and abetting the delivery of phones. Uh, it's just stuff like that you just blows your mind being in this career for as long as we have. Like I hate watching shows about dirty cops. It just pisses me off to no end. I won't watch them. And here I am. These people are supposed to be on our team, and Carlos can attest. We walk in there the first time, and they're like, "You can't bring a cell phone in here." We're like, "Well, the reason we're here is because you have a bunch of cell phones in your prison, and what does it matter if I bring mine in here? I'm a government employee, not using nefariously, but I mean, they literally are delivering phones to people and telling us we can't bring ours into the prison.
Well, if you needed one, you could have just waited about an hour and a drone would have came in overhead, just waved it down.
We'd already
Or we could
arrested
have
her
paid for
for what
them
that job wasn't
2,500
happening.
bucks.
Right, right. So, so I know, just for sake of time, there's a lot more details in this case, and some of it's still pending. But from something that started as a single victim, what is it? What is kind of the current status of this case now? What's the landscape look like?
I don't know the number of victims we have on this thing nationwide, but I would venture to say that we're probably somewhere in the range of probably close to 500 to 1,000 victims, uh, at least 1,000 suspects. When I say suspects, that's the person making the call, the people on the outside helping move the money to and from. Last count, just on what platform, it was roughly $80 million that had been attributed to this scam. on the one platform alone. And obviously they change when we started getting under their ways and the company was making changes, they switched platforms to do this on, right? So we don't have any concrete numbers from those other platforms that they switched on, but I would say easily over $100 million since September 2023 we can attribute has gone to basically fund the gangs, not only in the prison but on the outside as well.
Do you feel like this? I mean, I know there's a lot of cases dealing with similar things. This one's pretty big, multi-jurisdictional.
The
What
entire
kind of
nation,
convers? Yeah, it's
the
crazy.
entire
I mean,
nation.
do you feel like this has sparked any change in whether it's either security protocols, it's legislation to try to enforce better, create better laws around these types of things? Like, what any change as a result of this case?
So I can tell you that like the companies, the platforms that they've used, for example, shout out to Tyler and Ben. We're not going to put out their company, but obviously they have had to do some behind the scenes stuff to kind of prevent the fraud from occurring through their platform. And kudos to them because they didn't have to, but they did. And mind you, they were not out of any money. They're not losing any money because it's not money that it's coming from a loss from them. It's just money going through them, but they didn't want that to happen. So they were able to change a whole bunch of things, which is kind of one of the reasons why we believe they went from that platform to another ATM company platform and so forth. That bounced like 3 or 4 times. Because what we also did, which was really kind of neat to see, talking about collaboration and communication, we started bringing them together, and they were able to kind of share without sharing information that's pertinent to their companies, but they were able to share some of the stuff that they could do to help prevent the fraud. And so as they started to communicate and share, you could start seeing where the bad guy would have to pop over to the next one because obviously they were catching up quick enough. So these are all really cool things to watch because you're seeing people communicating and preventing the fraud, right? Um, I actually would say that it's more than 1,000. I actually feel that there's more victims than people realize. I would say in the thousands, because again, there's a lot of agencies that just don't know about crypto, and they probably haven't even investigated the case, and therefore it's just not being reported, right? So I do feel there's a lot more victims than we realize. And as far as legislation, which is kind of the question you asked, really, um, people are doing what they can. Um, it really needs to come down to somebody at the higher levels have to come to Georgia and be like, hey, fix your prison system because it's affecting the rest of the country. And until you do that, it's not going to prevent
I
it.
think that's fair. Well, I'm going to give you a couple softball questions here to wrap us up because I mean, the case is fascinating and people, I'm hopefully are pretty excited, interested to see all the work that goes behind the scenes in these cases, and then learn from some of the experiences that you all had. But from a takeaway too, from a communication standpoint, whether you're an investigator that's listening, we got a lot of law enforcement that listens, investigators in the private sector, banks, retail, loss prevention, whatever, and a lot of just lay people that like to hear about what's going on from a communication standpoint and kind of true crime. But everybody at some point is going to interact with somebody who's been scammed or who's in the verge of being scammed. And those conversations can be difficult to have. Maybe it's with a parent, the grandparent, it's with a loved one where you have to say, hey, that don't seem just right. So you guys have had a lot of experience with this, but any advice or suggestions on either a person themselves is what kind of red flag should I look for? Or how do I approach a friend of mine or family member who might be becoming a victim and educate them on that without pissing them off at the same time?
Think I'll go. Well, again, going back to your previous podcast, because I did watch that one with Jonathan Walton, he points out some really great things, man. Like, there's
Yeah.
always a flag that comes up. And I think if people would just pause and not feel the urge or the pressure to actually go like, wait a second, does this actually make sense? Um, that would change a lot of that from preventing, it would change, actually would prevent a lot of the fraud from happening. Um, I just feel like people kind of get in this tunnel because they feel pressure and they don't know what to do. Um, but you know, it's really going to come down to like you can't be afraid to ask somebody if something doesn't make sense. Call somebody. Call your best friend. Go see the priest, whoever you need to talk to that can kind of make you go pause for a second. Let's talk this through, and see if this truly makes sense to anybody. Um, and then At the end of the day, you can always call Andy. I'm willing to give out his name and number at the end, by the way. So just let me know when you're ready.
Well, I refer to it
Andy?
as the OODA loop, Dave. And we talk about it in hostage negotiation, right? There, people are in an OODA loop. Like they'll talk just like a sovereign citizen. They'll talk about the same thing over and over and over again, and these people are just stuck on it. And how do you get these people out of it? 9 times out of 10, if you just ask them, "Are you being scammed?" They'll actually think about it, right? And we kind of parlay that into the hostage negotiation techniques. If someone is kind of hinting at suicide and they're not sure what they're talking about, we're like, "Do you want to commit suicide?" And that kind of wakes them up to like, oh my God, I think I'm going to commit suicide. I don't want to commit suicide. I just want my voice heard. Well, cool. Now we've parlayed off of that fear, and now we can work on resolving the situation and making them do it. You come up with a solution for themselves. I think I'm a strong proponent of if you have a family member who you think is being scammed, flat out tell them. And if they still are not believing it, we've had numerous cases here. Uh, get law enforcement involved. I spent 45 minutes talking to a lady who thought she was marrying Mel Gibson. She actually left a Dear John letter for her husband, and she was about to leave. Uh, and 45 minutes later, I finally got her convinced her that you're not marrying Mel Gibson. This is not Mel Gibson. He's not that guy on Telegram telling you that you have access to $3 million, but I need you to move it. That doesn't happen. Um, so being brutally honest with people goes a long way, I think, with especially family members. And you may run to the point where they don't trust you, but once they realize it is a scam, they will come back if they're a true family friend.
Yeah, that's good advice, good feedback. I'm gonna give you both one last question. You can pick and choose who goes first and how you answer it.
Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. You can just say
I
it.
knew that. I was waiting. So if you're not watching the podcast, if you're just listening, a reminder that you can watch us on YouTube and on Spotify. And there's video that Andy had to have Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Bucks flag behind him. Congratulations. The era
Where's
is
your Bills
over.
one? Where's your Bills one, Dave?
Listen, I'm
Where's your
waiting.
Bills
I don't.
championship flags?
All right. I hope our editor hears this part of the podcast to remove it. To wrap up, the question I want to ask is either kind of twofold, either, and maybe both answers if you want, but what are you most proud of when you look back at this entire investigation? Like what brings you pride from what you've accomplished throughout, and or what did you learn that you would have done differently if when this type of case comes forward again, or somebody gets this case in another agency? So either proud, or maybe what was a gap that you've learned you would do a little bit differently next time.
I'm proud of the fact that we worked for an agency that gave us the ability to do what we needed to do. They didn't just bury their head in the sand and say it's one victim, and then it parlays into what we're now talking about currently. That I'm proud of. I'm proud of that. Carlos is a bulldog. He will go after it. I'm kind of there as a data input guy initially, and then this case is going to outlive Carlos and myself at this agency, quite honestly. And the fact that we got the ability to do what we need to do to get the word out there that this is happening, so we can stop hopefully somebody from it. And as far as doing something different, I would probably pick better times of the year to go to Georgia.
That's fair. That's fair.
Christmas
What about
was
you,
nice,
Carlos?
though. Christmas was nice. All right. So
It
as
was.
far as what I'm proud of is the fact that all these times, like I said, ever since we met with Monica and Karen and Amanda and everybody, we've talked about relationships and building those connections and collaboration, right? And what I'm most proud of in this case is the fact that we were able to do that. We brought in people that didn't know Andy and I, and they took a chance and they said, you know what do you guys need? And because of that, an ad hoc team was created to work together. And because of that team, we've gotten through so much stuff. I mean, we got to mention, obviously, somebody at the FBI. I can't mention his name, but he came along at the end and kind of helped us with the federal side of it. Um, so that's my biggest, that's my favorite part of this whole story is the fact that there's there. What have I learned? I learned that I'm not speaking loud enough about the issue that's going on because it hasn't stopped, and there's still victims across the country being called, and this thing evolves every day to something new. Um, and so I'm not being loud enough. So therefore, I have to figure out a way uh, to be able to be louder while I'm still employed at the sheriff's office. But once that's over as well, what am I going to do next? And so I'm ready to be a little bit louder once I leave here in a couple hundred days. That's really frustrating for me because I'm ready to shut this down. There's a couple companies we haven't talked about, but we'll leave it at that because there's a reason why I'm not bringing them up.
Yeah. Well, I think that's exciting. It's a good feedback from both of you guys, and we're making it louder now. I mean, we're educating you guys presenting on cases like this at conferences and educating the community and other investigators makes a huge dent. And that's hopefully what we're doing here as well. So I appreciate you guys allowing us to have the platform to share your story. It's been pretty interesting. Last question I just want to throw out there. If people want to learn more about either these types of crimes or where do I go to report something like this? And do I just call my local agency? Are there any resources out there, whether it's for
Carlos.Verdoni at
yeah, I was waiting. I said
Carlos.Verdoni at sarasotasheriff.org. That's where you go.
Dave, if you
Email me
remember what he
closed down in
mentioned,
200
I'm
days.
leaving.
Yes,
Listen,
that's
Dave,
true.
remember what he said? I'm leaving soon. So therefore, the email you should be really emailing is andrew.rowe at sarasotasheriff.org. He'll be there to answer your call because I won't. No,
So
but
no,
yeah.
to answer your question, Dave, number one, report it to your local agency. If the agency kind of sloughs you off, like Carlos said, there are platforms you can go to, Operation Shamrock being one of them. You can go to them. If there's a cyber crime or a cryptocurrency crime, TRM has something called chain abuse. You can report it there as well. Where investigators like Carlos and myself, we are able to see the chain abuse reports, and we can go in there and look at it. And if we may end up calling you out of the blue, not pretending, we are law enforcement, but you're going to think we're pretending to be law enforcement. To go and investigate your crime and try to come up with some sort of resolution. At the very least, we can tell you where it ended up. If we can't do anything about it, I mean, at least you know what happened to it, and you're not left there wondering forever. But that would be my recommendation to everything. Carlos, what do you got?
Nah, you're right. That's basically definitely notify your local law enforcement. Whether they do anything with it or not, make a report of it. So that way, if there is a report, we can find it later on. They can actually also have you do it on IC3, which obviously at least it records it somewhere, and we can just go from there. But if you don't do that, then we're kind of stuck, right? Because we'll never know about it, and we will never be able to connect some dots that could be connected at a later time. But yeah, that's what I would do. And the only request I have, Dave, for next time, can we ask Jonathan Walton to come on and be like the guy asking more questions because he's so good at it.
Jonathan is a rock. Did you just
want a
sub me out
moderator,
as
Carlos?
the host?
No, what I would like to see is the four of us going at it. That would be hilarious.
No, Jonathan was, if you missed it, we just had a recent podcast on the anatomy of a con artist, and Jonathan Walton did a great job talking about that, really closely related to this same case. So same concept.
Did you tell him?
Can we talk about
your
driving habits, Dave?
No, hold on. Before we do those driving habits, can we talk about the fact that Jonathan did a murder mystery for Dave and everybody in Vegas? Remember with the IFCI? That was probably one of the biggest hits ever. And so, just so you guys understand, like the close knit group that we have going on here, gotta watch that episode if you haven't watched it because he's really good. But Dave, all your episodes, man, I really enjoy talking to you and listening to your stuff. So good job on that.
Well, I want to shout out this concept of relationships and to kind of wrap us up with resources. So I know I kicked us off with, we connected through the International Association of Financial Crime Investigators, who also has a great partnership with the International Association of Interviewers, II. Both groups have worked together and kind of represented at each other's shows. But if whether you're in a private sector investigations or in law enforcement, leverage associations like that, because there's a great network of other resources to build these connections. Between Andy and Carlos, they dropped about 30 names in the last 60 minutes, and most of those are people they've met through things like that, through those events and through personal connections. So it's a strong way to help build your case. But I'm going to let you guys go back to your more important jobs. But thanks for giving me some time today and for hanging out on this episode of Truth Be Told.
To help more listeners find our show, please provide us a rating, give us a follow, and share this episode with your colleagues. For the latest news and to engage with our guests, follow Truth Be Told on your favorite social media apps. And don't forget, we are available on all major platforms, including Apple, Spotify, and watch a video of this episode on YouTube. On behalf of our guests and valued sponsors, thanks again for listening to this episode of Truth Be Told.